So I wanted to do a video talking about air pruning pots. You know, I grow a lot of things from seeds, and I've done a lot of research over the years, and you come across this, oh, the air pruning containers. These are some papaya seedlings that I have here. Red lady papaya. Well, they were seeds from a red lady papaya, I should say. And this is a Root Maker Express 18 cell express tray. They're these really heavy duty injection molded little 4-inch containers, and like I said, they air prune the roots, so you can see the holes in the bottom. The roots air prune, and the intent is to prevent the roots from circling. It trains the root system into this really nice shape. If you look online, you'll see all kind of pictures about Root Maker and their air pruning containers, and you can read about the advantages. But this video I just wanted to talk about, is it worth it? You know, I'm sure some of you have seen, you know, and are maybe thinking about it. The short answer is yes, it is worth it. I have two different kinds of air pruning pots here in front of me. This is the Root Maker Express 18 cell trays, and then this is an Air Pot brand. This one actually, there's usually like a little screw that holds it together. It's like a sheet of this plastic with holes in it that winds around that bottom little disc. But the Air Pot and the Root Maker both work fantastic. The Root Maker, the drawback is getting the plant out of this container is a little bit tricky. You know, you got to kind of come in here, and what I do is I push something in these holes, like a pen or a stick or something, just real gently, little at a time, go around like you're tightening lug nuts or something. Little at a time, just push it and tease it out of the container. And sometimes you'll break a root, which is frustrating when you're trying to train the roots. But as long as you let something grow to, you know, a decent size, there's enough roots, and the roots are thick enough to where you don't typically have an issue. These papayas have been in here about, I don't know, maybe 50 or 60 days from when I sowed them. The air pots are much easier to use. There's usually, like I said, like a little screw that goes in here, and you unscrew it and it unwinds around it, so you can just kind of peel it off and keep the container completely intact. The quality of the root system is equally good with both. You know, you can look at pictures on the internet of all the, you know, root tips air pruned, and how much more fibrous and branched the root systems are. And what you see on the internet, those pictures, that's exactly what you get. You know, it's not a gimmick. The root systems that these things make are really superior. Really superior. And if you have anything that's particularly any perennial stuff, you know, that it's going to be there a while, that you want to have a good root system, these are passion fruit right here. These are Passiflora edulis seedlings that I got, that I'm growing in there just for funsies. But they work really good. But the root systems can, you know, again, the root makers are a little bit harder to get the plant out of than the air pots. Tomato seedlings, I use my air pots because they're more delicate. These are more woody. They're a little bit easier to deal with. These I use for my tomatoes. They work amazingly well. I mean, it's the quality of the seedlings that I can grow out in these are so superior to what I can buy from a big box store or anywhere. I mean, the seedlings are so much better. They are twice the size. You know, when the seedling is 6 inches tall, the leaves are much bigger. Everything about the plant is just so superior, and there's zero transplant shock at all. And the root ball is like a solid mass with no branch or no root bound. It's not root bound at all. Same thing goes with these root makers. You pluck it out of here, you stick it in the ground, it starts growing immediately. There's zero transplant shock because the root systems are just ready to roll. Again, so these express trays I think are like, I want to say they're like $25 or something like that. I did the price comparison yesterday and I can't remember. I think these were actually $25 or $26 on Amazon for 4 of these. This whole system right here was like around $20 with all 18 cells and the little holder. So the root makers these express trays are way, way cheaper than these. So one thing you have to be mindful of with both of them is that the containers, these dry out faster than a regular container. They absolutely do. They dry out faster. They have a lot more holes in them. They drain really freely, and you're getting the air in there. The air is what's pruning the roots, right? So you need to make sure you have some kind of misting system or some kind of way to irrigate. I'll show you a trick that I do with my tomato seedlings that I've kind of used to overcome that, quick drying factor of them. So, oh, my gimbal's going crazy. So these are 3 of the air pots. This is just a little container with some holes drilled about 1 inch up, maybe about 3/4 of an inch. But I just sowed some tomato seedlings in here. Inside of this little pot, there's a wicking piece of cotton clothesline cord in the shape of a U, and it goes all the way up to the very top of the container and all the way back down and out the bottom, and it's covered, immersed in the soil. The water that's in here wicks up through that cord and keeps the container moist all the time. I haven't watered these from the top, and you can see how moist they are. So it's like a sub-irrigated air pruning pot. And then when you want to get the plant out, you just unscrew this little screw and you unwind it away from it and pull the little disc that's on the bottom off, and then like what I have is just some holes drilled in here so that I just fill it up with water and I don't have to think about the level of water, and it just fills up high enough to keep the cord wet, but not high enough to get into the bottom of the container. So it's always got the air pruning ability, but the container stays moist all the time. Like these are just baking in the sun right now, and it's probably close to 100 degrees here right now, and they're good and moist. So I expect these are 2 purple boy and 1 red snapper tomato, and I expect these to pop pretty quick with as hot as it is. So in short, the air pruning containers are totally worth it. I love them. I think the quality of the root systems that are made is just so superior. Sorry about that, my phone overheated. Had to take a break there. So here I have 2 spring high blueberries that are in 30-gallon accelerator containers, which are air pruning containers, and then 1 kestrel blueberry that's in a 50 or 60-gallon pouch or a root pouch, and that's like a fabric pot. So the fabric pots are air pruning as well as these accelerator pots. They have these ridges and air pruning holes. These work really, really well. I mean, these blueberries are pretty big. They're probably almost 6 feet tall, and they fruited really, really well in the spring. But the same thing with all air pruning pots. Air pruning pots give you a better shelf life, so to speak. Like things can grow long term and you don't have to worry about the root system getting all jacked up and circling around in the pot. And for things like blueberries, for example, they do have some big woody roots, but you could grow a lot of different kind of fruit trees. You could grow successfully in these large type containers. And Root Maker, as well as Air Pot, the other ones that I showed, make big containers too. I just happened to get these for free, these large 30-gallon accelerator pots, and I used them for my blueberries. And they're working they're working really, really well. I'm happy with them. The blueberries are, like I said, they produce real well, and they, you know, they don't dry out nearly as fast as because they're 30-gallon pots. But I feel confident that the root system of this is good, like really fibrous and branched and not circling the pot at all. So again, the advantage is the same whether it's in a big pot or it's a little pot, and you're starting seeds or you're growing something long term. It just, you end up with a much better structured, healthier root system if you grow in an air pruning pot versus a conventional smooth walled container where the roots can hit that edge and start to run around in circles. So I definitely think the air pruning containers are worth it, 100%, particularly if you live somewhere where you're trying to grow something maybe that's tropical fruit tree in a container and you have frost or something, like a mango or some kind of garcinias or something like that. You could, or even a papaya, you know, you could grow in a container and move it relatively easily and still have a solid root system. So like I said, I don't think that there's really any comparison between something that's grown in a conventional style container versus one of the air pruning containers. It's absolutely worth it to do. You know, I've grown live oaks, I've grown persimmons, I've grown sweet gums, I've grown hickories, papayas, I've sprouted, you know, mangoes in them. I've like longevity spinach, tomatoes, squash, okra, sunflowers, different kinds of beans I've grown out in them. Just about everything. And the root systems that you get are just way, way better with these containers. So, you know, sorry about that, the gimbal. But you know, if you just take into account the limitations of the different kinds of air pruning containers and what to expect, you know, they're definitely, it's not a gimmick. It works really, really good. And I have an interest in growing the best quality plants. One of the issues I've had with is finding good nursery stock. You know, people don't, this is not a common thing to use air pruning pots in the nursery trade. There are nurseries that are certified, the root maker or whatever. But, you know, again, if you're doing any of your vegetable transplants, like tomatoes and stuff like that, you're growing fruit trees from seed, or you're growing just general landscape trees from seed, the air pruning pots make all the difference in terms of the quality of the seedling that ends up coming out of the pot, and how long you can leave it in the pot before it starts to decline. And particularly if it's anything woody, if you leave it in the pot too long, you're permanently impacting the long-term health of the tree, because the root system starts to become malformed to the point where it won't recover when you stick it in the ground. You know, it depends on the species, but you know, it's true more often than not. So like I said, the root pruning pots are definitely worth it. And like I said, the air pot, and the root maker. And there's also again, I didn't show much of the fabric pots. I've used the root pouch, and you know, root maker makes one called a root trapper. I haven't used that specific one yet, but they don't air prune as well as these do. And you got to make sure you have airflow on the bottom. And if you put one of those fabric pots like on the ground, the roots don't want to prune. Like anything with a really strong, really dominant taproot, like a lot of your like hardwood species and stuff like that, like hickories and oaks and stuff in that family, in my experience, that taproot wants to get bound up in the bottom, but you still end up with a vastly superior root system than what you would otherwise get in a traditional type container. So, but yeah, that's my opinion on the air pruning pots. I hope that helps somebody out to make a decision. So, thanks.